Well, hello again. Thanks very much for joining us on the Alan Hudson podcast. It's great to have you along. We've got an old mate of mine on the show today. It's Kevin Garside, the chief sports correspondent of the iPaper. Kev, great to see you, mate.
Great to be on here.
Nice one. I'm not sure if you and Alan have ever met before, but perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, Alan, to Kevin.
Have we met, Kev?
Only via all match of the day reruns, I think, Alan. Yeah, you were my best mate was a Chelsea fan as a kid, and I remember when Chelsea beat Leeds in one of the great FA Cup finals, 1970, in the replay. Was that at Ellen Road? Was it the replay? Oh, it was Old Trafford, wasn't it? Old Trafford, yeah. Stinker. I remember you. Remember David Webb and loads of Aussie and obviously Harris. Quite a few from that team, and but we were from Manchester, and he's a Chelsea fan, and he was a Chelsea fan because of that match. So so you were a topic of my early football conversations,
Well, I think what no one's ever mentioned is that although I missed it with an injury, it was heartbreaking to miss that game after such a good season. We were building up. Our team was building up. It got better. It took me about 10 games to get into the stride. Yeah. And I was kind of the lapdog in the team. I was doing the running for Aussie and Hutch and all that.
Yeah.
But that was worthwhile. I always said if I played before them, I would have done Johnny Ainsley's running because what a player.
Yeah.
But I always say to people, just can you imagine had Leeds won that game at Old Trafford or at Wembley? You'd never heard the last of it.
No.
Would you? And then Leeds supporters.
Well, it was a great Leeds team, to be fair, wasn't it?
Well, they were a terrific team, but they, like everybody else, they had flaws, didn't they?
Yeah, but Chelsea. And the other thing that I remember about that Chelsea team was the kit with that little white stripe down the shorts, which I thought was always rather fetching. So I like the blue. Yeah.
But let's get on to why we've introduced you onto the show today, Kev.
Yeah.
You wrote a fantastic piece in the paper this morning. Basically a follow up on the international break and the players and the formation that England have used in the two games against Serbia and Albania. Perhaps you could talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've all seen a lot of Declan Rice, and we all admire him. He's got, he could run forever. He's like indefatigable, terrific footballer, 100% commitment. Really, really nice fella. So I feel bad about this. I really, really like him. He's a really nice fella. When my son and I went to the London Football Awards in Camden a year ago or so, Johnny's 26. He's a United fan, but he still loves Declan Rice, and stepped in and asked for a picture. And he said, actually, I can't do it now, but I'll come back if that's okay. And you know what? He came back and did the picture. It was fantastic. Really nice fella. But I think, at West Ham in the Premier League, whenever Moyes sent him forward, he was dangerous. And he attacked the goal, but using enthusiasm rather than craft. Because he power passed players late in the game, and he was quite dangerous in that period. But doing it for West Ham is one thing, but picking a French or picking a Spanish or a Brazilian defence apart in the late rounds of tournaments, you need a little bit more than that, I think. And I've always been an admirer of Foden. When he burst on the scene, I was thinking he should have gone to the World Cup as a 17-year-old. Perhaps it was a little bit early, and he didn't go. But clearly a terrific player, and now back to some form. And when he came on the other night, his link play in that last third was just something that Declan doesn't give us, for all his energy. And now he's been released, and we've covered him at 6 with either Elliot Anderson or Adam Wharton. You feel that he's under threat. I feel that he might be under threat now from somewhat a player of greater technical range. And Foden can give. He's left-footed. He runs about a lot, just as Declan does. But he gives you finesse and ability to create things in the last third, and he can bang it. He can hit it in the back of the net. But I'm interested in more in Alan's view as the technical accomplishments of a player, because you're talking about one of the best here that England has ever produced, and what he thinks. I'd be more interested to know what he thinks about let's say, well, Declan Rice in the round, but the idea of a Foden, a more technical player, advancing in the final third in the last half hour of matches. I just think that's what we've lacked and what England has failed to embrace over my time as a supporter. Too often is they've had a default for industry over craft, I think.
Yeah, I understand 1,000,000% what you're saying, and I've always said, there's club players and international players. You know, it's a big step up. You know, you're playing, and that's what something I've missed through getting banned for England by Ramsey for 3 years, and Revie didn't like me, didn't pick me. But what I miss more than anything in my life is playing against Italians and the French and, you know, them top teams. I mean, they're the real test of your ability, and you want to play against the best players in the world, you know. And Netzer said after the Germany game, you know, where they've been hiding this player. Who is he? You know, he said he was world class tonight. And, you know, but Revie was I suppose it happens with a lot of managers. Everything's too personal, you know.
Yeah,
we're a country. He thought in his day that it was all about Leeds, Yorkshire. He come up that way. Is that man? He is that man. Well, he's not. It's all about the people in Plymouth. It's people down south. People in Bournemouth, and this is an England team, you know. And you pick your best 11 players, and that's why Venables in 1996 was nearly pulled it off.
Yeah,
it was a bit unlucky. It was unlucky in the end, you know. But he was a little bit lucky early on. He rode his. But you get luck in these things, you know. When we beat Leeds, they were the better team, but we had more courage in our team. I think when it really got tough, I think we come back 3 times, and when they went behind, they never looked like coming back. We just shut them down, and I didn't play. So that's the way I saw that one. But as regards international, when we played the Germans, he picked Colin Bell, Alan Ball, and myself in midfield. I know.
Decent.
We didn't need a defensive midfield player. Not against them teams. You don't, you know. And I was so lucky against Germany that Alan Ball was in the team, because I knew where he was all the time. He knew where I was, and we had it right up. I mean, playing in 5 sides together, it was he was delightful. He was magic. And the other thing that favoured me was there was 2 fullbacks who were making a debut too. Ian Gillard on the left, and the boy from Leicester on the right.
So David Nish, was it?
No.
Steve Whitworth.
Steve Whitworth.
Steve Whitworth.
Blimey, Steve Whitworth. Blimey.
But you know, they played, and they could boast that they played against the world champions, and they helped win it. And it helped me, because I said to them, whenever you get the ball, it's your debut as well. And I weren't nervous. I was so looking forward to it. I remember doing a press conference the day before, and I said, I'm tailor-made. These are the matches I want to play in, and I will show you tomorrow. And I did. And I said to these 2 lads, when you get it, don't do what you do with your clubs. Get it into me or Alan or Colin or whatever. And that's how we ran the game. We didn't take the notice of the dossiers at Revie. They all went in the bin. I didn't even look at mine. I threw it straight in the bin. And so that is what you do, because you don't need telling how to play when I was 23, 24 at that stage. Never played for England. Been banned for 3 years. The pressure was really on me. And the pressure was on when I went to Stoke. The pressure of Waddington was under when he bought me. Everybody was waiting, like all you lot, Tony and all them, Jeff Powell and all, with their pens, with a horror story. You know, if I'd have failed against Liverpool on my debut, it would have been £240,000 worth of rubbish. That's what it'd have been, because I was playing rubbish at Chelsea. And if I'd followed on that form, you know, there was arguments, there was everything in our team. Everything that could go wrong went wrong at Chelsea. And then that stand they were building was falling everyone's side because they needed money to start building the stand again. And they've gone, him and Brian, Dave Sexton and Brian Mears sat down in a meeting and they said, who's worth the most money in this team? Osgood, number one, Hudson, number two. Charlie Cook then was just coming to the end of his tether, or they played a long time after. And I think it took a toll. His drinking with Tommy Baldwin didn't help. But then I played against Charlie over in America, in the North American Soccer League, and he kind of hadn't had a drink for about 10 years. And he was superb against us, you know.
Right.
I think when you got them players, I mentioned me and Bally in particular. Ball, I see Fulham, Alan play at Fulham in a 3-3 draw, and he was 16 or 17, you know. And I thought, who's this? And it was, and then when Fulham turned me away for being too small, I think my father turned around and said, well, we see Alan Ball here the other week. He said he's as big as Alan Ball now, you know, he was as tall as him. So it was nonsense. It was all, you know, all the best players in the world have been small, haven't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, Messi, Diego Maradona.
Maradona, you know, George weren't much, you know. He was
but 5'8", 5'9", wasn't he? Yeah. Bobby Charlton,
yeah, you know, so
Johnny Giles.
Yeah.
But Al, can I just say it's interesting. It was interesting for me to read what Kevin wrote this morning in the iPaper, because he's basically been parroting everything that you've been saying about Declan Rice for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I know you feel as though he should be playing more as a sort of a sweeper at the back for England. That's where his abilities will be best utilised.
I really do. I do believe that, Tony, Kevin. I really believe that. I know you liked him the other night, or when he came forward for West Ham and all that. But as you say, you know, you got other players to do that. You know, you've got players that can actually do it, and they get to the edge of the box and they've got that little bit of guile, the little bit of the subtlety. You know, like David Silva at Man City, they were never the same when he left. You know, they missed that little bit of magic around the box. You know.
But I think you know, Declan looking good at West Ham. He was the best player at West Ham, so he's going to look good. But he's not the best player in that position with England, because England are now blessed with technical players, and that's the thing that kind of I've always thought about Declan. That he's got so many qualities that have been kind of harnessed in the past by England managers who want people they believe they can kind of depend on, rely on, give you everything, 100%, hit the tackle, get up and down the pitch, give your all for the country, all this kind of thing. But how many World Cups have we won? You know, one, and not since 1966. So we've got to do something different. And you look at the way that England lost to Spain in the Euros. You know, they lost to a team that was playing almost like a Premier League team with two wingers. You know, Yamal and Nico Williams on the other side, and we were just kind of in blocks of four. You know, all our good players were kind of locked into some kind of passive shell. Declan's great for that. But, you know, you've got to break out. And England's best game under Southgate was definitely the quarter-final in Qatar when they lost to France. But they actually took it to a big team in a big tournament and had a go. Harry Kane missed the penalty, which you do, and it went to France. It was a close game, but a great game, good game for England. But we've done it so little, and I just think, you know, now's the time to try something different, and we need more Hudson, you know, in that. I mean, I know you said you were a willing runner, but you were a technical player as well, and you got about the pitch, but you all have to get about the pitch now. No one's allowed to walk and take it easy. George Best ran around, you know, Bobby Charlton. No one ran further than Bobby Charlton in a match, but they were hugely technical footballers. And that's what we've lacked. And I think, you know, Declan further up the pitch for England, and it's easy doing it in qualifiers. It's easy doing it in group stages at the World Cup. I'm talking about last 16, quarterfinal, semi-final, when you meet the good teams. It's not like it was in your day, Alan. When you were playing international football, you were stepping up against the best players. But the best players now are in the club football. You know, Chelsea buy all the best players in the world. Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal. They're all in the Premier League. Real Madrid and Barcelona, they're the best teams in the world now. But you meet these players again at international level when they play for their countries. And England just have to do something different. And I just thought that He's been great for City this season, Foden, and I thought he was very, very good the other night. And there was 0-0 when he came on.
I was on one of my rampages the other night. I was up in Stoke-on-Trent with a few old friends. I missed the game, but I kind of feel like a lot of people, exactly what you've just been saying is you kind of know how the game's going to go. You know, someone will say to you the next day, did you watch it? You say, no. He said, well, it was this, that. I said, well, isn't it always like that?
Yeah.
You know, it's always like, I know that, and then the thing about management is to blame. Absolutely, you know. It's the manager can make or break a player. Sexton type broke me and what it brought me back to life. So that was always the thing I kind of say. But when Alf Ramsey, the great line I love with Alf Ramsey was in training one day, he called over Alan Ball and Nobby Stiles, and he said to them, "Do you own dogs?" So they both said, "Yeah, we've got a dog." He said, "What do you do with it when you take it over the park?" He said, both of them said, I throw a stick, I throw a ball, and said, "What does the dog do?" He said, well, he goes and gets it and comes back and drops it right at my feet. He said, well, that's what you two got to do to Bobby Charlton.
Yeah.
So that was it in a nutshell, and that was his team talk to them two. I mean, he belittled Alan Ball because Alan Ball was a marvellous player. I mean, but at that time when he first got in against the Germans, he ran Schellinger ragged, didn't he? You know, up and down that right.
Yeah. He was brilliant in 66.
Like myself, when I left Chelsea and was put into a position which was an inside forward, like Hoddle done it Tottenham from an early age.
Great player.
Yeah, absolutely. He made his debut against me at Stoke, and I said to him coming off, I said, "Carry on like that, mate. There's no stopping you." I just patted him on the arse. You know, he scored. Yeah. He was superb. I don't know exactly your piece this morning. It just it hit everything, all the right notes. You know, it was so many players that have been overlooked for inferior players.
What did you think of Tony Kerry?
What did I think of Tony? What do I think of Tony Kerry? I'd love to play with him. I think it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I always used to have early night when we played Sheffield United. and I tell you something else.
He was a Londoner though, wasn't he, Tony?
He's what?
He was a Londoner, wasn't he?
He started week. He had a trial at Chelsea.
Yeah. He ended up going up north, but he was a Londoner, wasn't he? Yeah.
So well, he played for Watford, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
Cracking play.
Yeah.
You used to have an early night before you played in.
Well, you know, you had to when you play. You know, you look at who you're playing the next day. I mean, I was only out of all the once at Stoke, and we went out to early hours of the morning. And we went to Highbury and beat Arsenal 1-0. When I luckily I scored the goal, and me and Jeff Salmons was out to about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it goes back to the boss no matter what.
Yeah.
And we come in after the game. It was a great win. We won 1-0 at Highbury. Not many people go there and just do what we've done. Done a great job of them. Our defence was superb. And he said, "Great result, lads." He said, "But I'm going to have to look at your training regime, talk to my coaches." He said, "Because a couple of you looked a little bit leggy at times." Well, that was me and Jeff Salmons. That was his way of telling us that he knew that we'd been out. Whereas most managers would pull you in the office, you know. Yeah. And like, I remember one of the funniest things I've ever seen is when George went missing, George Best. Busby weren't very happy. He called him into his office, and Dennis Law was sitting outside waiting to go in after him, and George was in about half hour, and Dennis said, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And George laughed. He said, "What are you laughing at?" He said, "He just give you a bollocking." He said, George went, No. He said, I know how many flowers he's got on his walls. He said he's stacked, and Dennis Dennis laughed. You know, he just sat there counting the flowers while he was getting a bollocking, and I just say, you know, it ain't gonna do. No, you know, this ain't gonna work. You know, and that was that. You know, us players, we don't listen to people like that.
No, it's interesting. I think, you know, it's about connections, isn't it? You know, you need managers like Busby would say to George Best. I mean, we're getting a bit nostalgic here, but he just say to George Best, you know, go and enjoy yourself, lad. You know, and that seemed to be enough. A bit like Pep with Messi. What can you tell Messi? But
well,
but
I think the great line of when Jeff Powell wrote forward for my book, and he right at the end of it, he said, Alan's found his Fengali with Waddington, like Messi with so and so, Shearer with Venables, you know, these kind of things. And he named about 6 players, Gascoigne with whoever, and that is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Well, we ain't got no Bengalis, have we?
Well, I think, you know, it's. I think there are I think the way that Pep gets players to play for him is amazing. Ferguson did it in a slightly different way, I think. But you know, there are a couple of managers I like now who I think are very good with their players who seem to know what they're doing. Glasner at Palace is doing a great job. Areola at Bournemouth is doing a terrific job. Yeah, and you've got to think that these guys know, and I think Unai Emery at Villa's got a way of getting a lick out of the team. But you know, again, these days, I don't know what you think, but the technical range of the players we've got in the Premier League now has never been higher. You know, every team's got really, really good technical players, and that's why every other team. That's why, you know, every team can come unstuck if they a bad patch. You know, I mean, Chelsea lost at United, for goodness sake. How did they manage that? I mean, they were 2-0 down, weren't they? But you only had 10 men, didn't you? But, you know, going back to your day, I'm just kind of thinking, just you were one example I used, and Tony Kerry was another. Duncan McKenzie I mentioned. But, I mean, Frank Worthington, I mean, what a waste that was. Stanley Bowles. I mean, crikey O'Reilly. Stanley Bowles. He was a Manc, by the way. He was one of my lot.
He was an absolute genius, Kevin. There's no doubt about it. You know, absolutely. You know, I know. I'm best friends with his best friend Don Shanks, and you know, he talks about him. He said all we used to do is look for sand all the time, and we knew he'd do it. You know, and his ability on his touch was just incredible. But going back, I think. When Alf Ramsey put Jeff Astle on against Brazil instead of Peter Osgood, I think Ramsey should have got the sack there and then. I'd have thought, if you actually believe at international level that Jeff Astle is better centre forward than Peter Osgood, then you got a problem.
Yeah.
And he missed a set. He's gone, bless him. He was a bloody good club player. Good centre forward, good and tough. He always played well down here. He was a handful, but Peter Osgood was like
a different level, wasn't he? And I think, you know, Astor was from another age, wasn't he? Really, you know, he was something like when you just winging crosses in left, right, and centre. But Ozzy could get it on the deck and really do damage, couldn't he?
And he had this supreme
swagger,
and he had amazing confidence, you know, that I think when I went to Arsenal, Chippy Brady, you know,
good player.
What's a player? Yeah, you know, and I was having a bad time at Arsenal. I was half injured, but not making an excuse, but I was half having a bad time, and I thought if only I could have been at my best playing with him.
Yeah,
he was magnificent, absolutely magnificent, and the manager, again, personal. I went to Arsenal. I didn't want to leave Stoke. I didn't want to leave Tony. But when I knew I had to go, Jimmy Robertson knew before I knew. He called me up. He said, I spoke to Terry Nick. I thought this could be the start of something really great. Alan Ball, Liam Brady and myself, if I was fit, that would have been... they talk about Ball, Harvey and Kendall at Everton, and they would have, you know...
They were good.
I think that three would have... Because Brady was a great balance, you know, had a great left foot, and he could do things. It was silly. It was too too much. I embarrass him when I see him, you know. But you know, that we're talking about real players here, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're not
one of the great players there.
You know, Tony said to me this morning, you know, certain players, you know, you shouldn't really mention names because it's, you know, it's not right really to dig people out. But, you know, they're people that got 60, 70 caps and you got 2, you think, you know, and then I play against them in the league and you think, well, so I used to say to him, how come you got 50 caps?
Let's get it back to the modern day. I mean, you spoke about the Declan Rice issue. I mean, what sort of lineup would you like to see in England side now leading into the World Cup?
Is that one for me, Tom?
That's one for you, Kev, because that's.
Oh right, okay. Well, look, I think look, Tuchel has done. After a kind of a very, very flat passive start where he took a while to get his bearings, I think, as England manager and adjust to the environment and to get the lines of and to establish his authority with the players. That seemed to me it took a bit of time anyway. But the other night when he came off after that 2-0 win in Albania in Tirana, he looked like he was right on top of it. He looked like a man whose authority was accepted. He's won the battle over with Bellingham, as it were. You know, he dropped him. He showed him that he meant business. He brought him back and said, "Well, show me what you can do." And he brought him off, and he was still petulant, but he'd had a great game. Bellingham he had a much better game because it seemed to me that Bellingham in that game, he was almost trying too hard, and he'd accepted the criticisms and was keen to sort of address them and put them right because he wanted to impress Tuchel. So he's established his power in that regard. I mean. So I think Tuchel is doing a decent job, and he's made some. I like his use of Eze. I think Eze is a fine player. I like that. He's brought Rashford back, and at least when he's not playing at Wembley, playing away from home, Rashford was outstanding the other night when he came on. When he played, I thought. So when he came on for Eze, didn't he? So I think he's played Elliot Anderson, which has been inspired. You know, so the picks that he's made, they've worked really well. And this kind of Elliot Anderson over Rice is at 6 is a bold move, and he's pushed Rice forward. And everybody thinks that Rice, amongst my colleagues, they all think I'm mad. You know, advancing this idea that Rice might not be the best thing since sliced bread, as it were. But I think he's opened up a fragility by moving him further up the pitch for Rice, because now he has to show something different, and it's not just about getting about the pitch in that position, although that's an important part of it. But you've got, as I said before, you've got to crack open a defence. And once he brought Foden, England look a different team when Foden in a central place. Pep got away with playing me on the left because Pep's a genius and he can persuade anybody to do anything. You know, I mean, when Thierry Henry went to when he went to Barcelona from Arsenal, he just said, like you mentioned earlier, Alan, he just stuck him on the left and said, "Look, your job. I don't want you coming in like you used to at Arsenal. None of that. Stay out there, hug that line, and when you get the ball, give it to him, point to Messi." You know, that was his job. You know, so Pep can do this because he's a genius, and he seems to. That's another interesting topic. You know, how he's evolved in Manchester City, but Tuchel has identified Foden as a central player, and that's where he's at his best. He hasn't got pace to go outside people on the wing. It's a ridiculous position for him, but he's got a great left foot, so Pep made it work. And he had they always had the ball, so it wasn't that much of a problem for them the way they were set up. But for England, he needs to be central and dynamic, and Tuchel has recognised that. In the last 2 games, he's come on as a substitute, and he created an assist for 1 goal, linking beautifully with Bellingham, feeding the ball to Eze, didn't he? But there was
are you suggesting we employ him more as a shock tactic for the last half hour?
No, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying that this is what happened. This is just saying that this is how he impressed in this affair, because he came on twice as a sub. One, he was involved in an assist, and the second, it was 0-0 when he came on, and they ended up winning the game 2-0. He didn't have an assist, he didn't score, but he moved the ball quickly, and he drove forward and picked the pass and he takes the ball on the half turn. Rice, I mean, he can't spell a half turn, Rice. I mean, bless him, that's not his game. Rice picks it up with the ball in front of him and then moves. That's where you want to play Rice. Give the ball when he's already in his stride. But Foden is just one example of this kind of player. Eze is another. They can take the ball in the half turn. He's not going to play Eze as an 8. No, he's just not going to do that. And I'm not advocating that. But Foden is beautiful in that central position. And he's got a left foot. And he can pass. He's got a range of passing. He's quick. He's got a brilliant touch. And he can change the direction of play really quickly. And that's what defences hate. They hate Bellingham running at them because they don't like players who can drop a shoulder and beat a man, because you can't legislate for that. That's why Gascoigne was so brilliant, because he could attack from any position on the pitch and beat a man. Foden's not going to necessarily beat a man in the same way that Bellingham is, but he can unbalance players in front of him, and then he can create space and gaps and feed the pass, and he can shoot and score, get on the end of things. So it's just this the evolution of Foden in this central role, where he's playing for City now, by the way, is created a problem that we didn't foresee, when everybody just thought that Declan Rice was the first name on the team sheet after the skipper came. And as I say, he's a good player. I like him, but I don't like him better than I like Foden in that position. And whether Tuchel don't forget, Tuchel at the start of this last international setup identified him as a half a 9 and a half a 10, didn't he? Like a false 9 and an inside forward. Alan's favourite old position. And he said he would never play Kane, Bellingham and Foden together. They couldn't play together in his view. Well, that lasted like a match and a half, didn't it? It lasted 90 minutes and 60, and plus 65, what's that, 155 minutes? Because that's exactly what he did in Albania. And they looked good together for 20 minutes. You know, Kane lasted the whole game, but they were on Bellingham, Kane and in tandem for 20 minutes, and it looked dangerous to me. But Albania had given it all. They hadn't sat back, they'd nothing to lose, they got second place, and so they were giving it a go right from, and they were at home and they fancied it, and it was a more open game. They created more problems in that qualifying group than any team, really. But England still were in control, managed it because they got good players. But it was just interesting for me the way that opened up, and I just saw that he replaced Kane in the first game at home to Serbia, but in the second game he took Declan Rice off and he played Foden in that spot. Now I'm just saying that tells me something. Maybe it doesn't, but it's what I would have done.
Well, I would start with it. He pretty much played Foden when he came on as a sub in the Serbia game as a false 9, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because that's what he thought. That's what he's been talking about, his best position, because he took him on, because he replaced Harry Kane, and he was involved in the goal, and he's great in that position. But I like him. For City, he's playing a little bit deeper in front of Rodri. Rodri's obviously not in and out at the moment, but he'd been picking in the derby. I noticed it particularly at the Etihad. He was picking the ball up deep and causing United problems from deep, and crossing the halfway line and driving at United and swinging that ball out to the left to Doku. And he was a real thorn in United's side that day. He was the best player on the pitch that day. Haaland got the headlines, scored a great goal, etc. He might have scored 2, actually, I can't remember. Weird game. United had more possession at the Etihad for the first time since in Petra, and that's for sure. And got done 3-0. You know, they had the better of the second half. I thought United would played quite well that day, but Foden was outstanding, and he brought that. He's bringing that form to England. This is the first time that Tuchel has picked him. Since this season, he didn't pick him in the October internationals, so he brought him back and he brought him on as a sub. So he's obviously not thinking as a starter. But I think his mind will change. And what's interesting now is that City are hitting form, and they're the team that look like the team that are going to press Arsenal. And Foden's after Rice in the Premier League. You know, he wants to win the title, and I think quietly he's probably after him in England as well. Anyway, just a thought. You know,
what. Where does Palmer come into all this? I mean, Palmer's got to be, as good as anybody. If they in the form that he was, someone's done something upset him at Chelsea, and he went right off the boil, and he went, and I can understand that. But the kid is unbelievable.
I love him, but if you've got to be realistic, I think I love him. But he's an outstanding footballer. He's just a great footballer. And if I were Tuchel, I'd stick him on the left. He's a left-footed footballer. I'd stick him. He'd work it out. Could play anywhere, that kid. But I'd stick him on the left because that's a problem for it. When we're playing Rashford, Anthony Gordon. For me, no. He's quick, but he runs in straight lines. Cuts inside. He might be effective every now and again, but not for me. Rashford had a good game the other night, but he was awful at Wembley. And again, he can run into cul-de-sacs. Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. I like Rashford, but I think he might have a role, but he wouldn't start for me. And he hasn't really explored Palmer, Tuchel. He really hasn't had a look at Palmer yet. Because he's been injured most of the time. But Palmer can play anywhere on a football pitch. I'd love him in that kind of 10 role. But he's not going to he's not. Rodgers is a good player. Morgan Rodgers, terrific. But it's going to be Bellingham or Rodgers in that role, isn't it? Supporting Kane in that forward line. Although you'd have to say that Palmer could do that just as well. But I think just to get him in the team, I'd play him in a position that England are having difficulty filling, and that's that wide left position. And he could play it because he can easily get outside anybody, but he could drift inside. He's great, but you have to be realistic. He's not going to play him. He's not a central midfielder, so he's going to have to play it across the forward line somewhere. And he loves Saka on the right. If it was my team, I'd play him ahead of Saka. But I mean, you get me run out of England for saying, first of all, for getting rid of Declan Rice. I can't get rid of Saka too, you know. So, and I like Saka, cracking player, and he's brilliant at his best.
I think he's the best of his kind up from over the years. You know, I think probably John Barnes was probably the greatest for me. But when he played for England, they didn't pass him the ball like Liverpool passed to him, you know.
No, dynamite for Liverpool.
When he played with Liverpool, he was a different class player. And he scored the goal against Brazil. And I was with him one night in Manchester, and Woodcock come across because he played. And he said to him, Barnes, he said to me, he scored that goal against Brazil. So Woody went, what do you mean I scored the goal? He said, because you got in my way. He said, so I had to beat another defender before I slid it past the goalkeeper. So he said, that was you done that. And he said he didn't realise. But, I mean, Barnes was unbelievable. But, again, the England managers didn't know how to play him properly. One thing about Ramsey always said, I want you to play like you play for your club. I want more, you know, and you can't be no fairer than that. You don't tell people like Bobby Charlton, I want you to do this, and Bawley, I want you to do that. Bawley with Everton in 1970 was just out of this world, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know what, Alan, I think we're similarly blessed. We're like 1966. We've got a lot of good technical players and some really world-class players. But that 66 team was outstanding, wasn't it?
Well,
players like...
I was a Fulham supporter, so I know pretty much about George Cohen. Alan Ball said that in his book, and if I've heard him say that Ray Wilson, Bobby Charlton, 4 world-class players they had, and he left himself out. Bobby Moore, of course. Bobby Moore played better in...
Oh, Alan Ball was one, definitely. Alan Ball was one. Jimmy Greaves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mine Peters wasn't bad either.
Yeah, they were good players, very good players. You know, that little extra that it's like comparing someone with Maradona. You know, it's incomparable. You know, you can't.
You leave him out of it. Yeah.
He was a total genius. You know, what he done it in Naples and then done it on the big stage in the worst Argentina team that probably.
That was the difference between him and Messi. Although that last Argentina team wasn't great, but Messi, that was a great World Cup, wasn't it? But I think you're right. You know, it's But Palmer's a very good question, I think. And
I said a long time back that I'd have played Rice as a double centre half. He's good in the air. He's strong. He can run. Yeah. He can tackle.
Yeah.
Why not put him at the back with whoever? He would have been great alongside someone like Steve Bold and Tony Adams when they had that, great defence.
Yeah, it's a very good shout. I mean, he's like John Stones. He's a John Stones type figure, isn't he? Pep played him in midfield. He's like John Stones. Yeah.
Yeah, and he can. You don't mind if he comes out from the back, but you'd rather have him in I would, because I think it would make that defence better, because it's everything you've just spoke about, what he's good at, and his power and all this.
But we've discovered, haven't we, that as a 6, he's kind of going to get boxed out. If Tuchel sees it this way, I mean, and he's smart enough to do it, he's already seen that what Elliot Anderson gives him a little bit more craft as well as industry in the 6th position. Rice is a very dynamic player.
I love him. Love him for Forest. I think he's such a good player. I thought at the beginning, I didn't realise he was English. He played like a continental.
Yeah, he does, because he keeps it small spaces, doesn't he? And he just links the play. I like this. I like Wharton. I think Wharton's a terrific player, but I'm not. He sees things so early, Wharton, and when he's got the ball and when he's snuffing out danger. But I think sometimes I'm not sure he moves quickly enough. You know. I would have him a bit like in a back 3. I'd have him sitting in front of the 2. You know.
They played at Stamford Bridge early in the season, and when they scored and they disallowed it, the great goal. And I spoke to a lot of people after the game about the game and everything, and nobody mentioned Wharton. I watched this kid all through the game, and I wondered how did they rate this kid? And he was exceptional. He was brilliant.
Yeah,
he done
his positional play is amazing.
And for such a lad that he's not too stocky, but he nicks it, and he's a real good player, and that's what people like Ezzy want, someone to get it like that and then knock them into him.
Just gives it. He always gives it. I mean, it was just a simple ball at the week in the Albania game. Was it? Did he play against Albania? Was it Serbia? I can't remember. But it was just a simple ball. He just picked it and just tucked it forward, and England were away. He might have played it into Bellingham. It might have been into Rice, but. The game opened up just through one pass, that he saw quickly. Boom. It looked dead easy. It looked like I could do it, but he sees it, he delivers it, but he puts it in the right spot, with the right amount of pace on it. So I'm a big fan of Wharton, but I don't know how he gets in as a starter at the minute, because I think Elliot Anderson has been such a gift in that regard. And I think England are blessed with these players. What a problem to have. Bellingham, Morgan, Palmer. Can't play them all, but what a problem to have. And I think in a World Cup, in a squad, you can take them. And hopefully, not everybody's going to be fit. There's going to be injuries and stuff. But if you keep Kane fit, it was exceptional again the other night. And if you can get the selection, if you can get his left back, the right left back, there's a lot to go at there. But the thing that will make the difference is being bold enough to go for teams in a way that Gareth kind of, when he got to the big latter stage of the tournament, he got us to finals, and fair enough. But you can't score first against Croatia after 5 minutes and not win, and score first early against Italy and not win. It just seems to me mad with the players that we have. So this is a big chance for England.
I actually said at the time, if England had had the women's manager against Italy and went 1-0 up, they would have beat them 4 or 5. Because woman, that manager,
Serena, she's good.
She's terrific, and she's so positive, and they go forward. There's no back passing, and obviously she can't run the men's game, but on that night she would have made sure that by playing, Italy were petrified in the first 5 and 10 minutes. They were petrified.
I'll tell you what though, Alan, if Tuchel saw you, he'd pick you. You might take you to LA. Might take you to the States in the summer, get you a game.
I don't know. I can only say about Tuchel. I remember him. The first time I ever see him was I like a gamble. I backed Bayern Munich to beat his team, who he was with then in the final.
PSG probably.
PSG in the Champions League final. So I backed Bayern and won a few quid. That was when he had his leg in plaster or something. Then he was sitting on the thing with his leg.
Was he all right?
I just wondered. I thought, who's this fella? Because anyone can manage PSG with all these players, and all swanning about like. But
well, he had a great moment for you lads in the Champions League, didn't he?
Yeah, didn't they beat Man City 3 times in a row?
Yeah, they did, and that And the
3
German
times
fella
in 6
scored.
weeks.
What's he called? The kid you sold to Arsenal. Havertz. Kai Havertz. Who I thought he was a terrific footballer in Germany. Was it Leverkusen he played for, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
A terrific player and terrific player for the German national team. But I just thought, yeah, he just lacks something for me in the Premier League. You know, whether it's a bit of aggression. But then he's popped up and scored important goals, and he'll never score a more important goal than the one that won the Champions League against an excellent City team. So you've got every right to be a fan of Tuchel.
Yeah, I mean, with talking about it, Havertz, you're saying he lacked something, and that was it. He had a chink, but I mean, you go back to Osgood. I got a photo of Osgood here. If you go back to Osgood, he lacked that streak that Osgood had.
Yeah, nasty, horrible, vicious streak. Yeah. Lift it up a bit. Lift it up. Oh, look at it. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Yeah, lovely.
My boyfriend in them days.
Yeah. Terrific. I remember when you had long hair, Alan. I remember that. Long hair bobbing over your ears there, it was.
He's still got long hair, but it's a different colour.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people tend to forget is that in them days, and more importantly, the problem was the manager. All through, that's how it all fell apart as well. And that's why he done so well with QPR, because when he got there, they were more seasoned pros there, and he let them. And of course, he had to take Stan Bowles out of that team, and they wouldn't have been.
Jerry Francis. Jerry Francis.
He's talking Dave Sexton.
Jerry was a good player, yeah.
Jerry was a decent player, but Jerry was a good player, to be fair.
He was a good player, and the winger, the Scottish winger,
Don Masson.
Irish.
Don Masson.
No, Don Shanks.
No, Don Masson.
Shanks was my mate. He was a good fullback. He was a terrific fullback.
Yeah. Masson was Scottish. Yeah. Good player. Stylish.
So then, Sexton's kind of walked into that club with them players. And they didn't need telling how to play. Frank McClintock was playing on one
hard
leg
as nails.
Hard
as nails, yeah.
But
don't mention Sexton's to me, Alan. I mean, he ruined my team. He was like Louis van Gaal and Mourinho rolled into one at our team. He bored everybody to death.
Well, there you are.
This podcast could last for 3 days if we get onto Dave Sexton.
Yeah.
We'll leave.
But listen. We've probably taken up far too much of your time, Kev. Thanks very much for contributing to the podcast today, mate. It's been brilliant.
My pleasure, and an honour to appear on the same pitch as a legend. Alan Hudson. It's fantastic, Alan. Great to meet you, man.
And thanks for the mention today. I really appreciate it. It seems a bit not silly, but you do appreciate when people, when you think 50 years on,
Alan, you were always a good. I mean, just fair players. I've always loved fair players. I'm a United fan. I grew up with. I mean, George Best, Charlton and Law playing down the street. Although when my mum and dad said I was too young to see them, I did see them all play. My dad took me in 1973, so I managed to before George left. So I managed to see them all play. But by the time I could get the bus, 2 buses to get down to United, we were going down with the dock. So But anyway, great to meet you.
Before we wrap up, just tell Alan the story about the Limelight Club, Kev.
Oh yeah, so in my student days, Alan, I was working because I'm like 6'3" and really impressive physically. So I was anyway. I was working as a nightclub bouncer. But in those days, it was when the term security was introduced. So I was security, and the idea of the Limelight, they didn't want kind of your standard beefy guy, just picking people out and whacking them and kicking them through the door. They wanted a different approach because the clientele they were aiming at a different kind of clientele. And I was there for 4 years. So this is on the corner of Charing Cross Road and Shaftesbury Avenue, just up from the Limelight, and sorry, just up from what was that? The Hippodrome and Stringfellows. So it was the Hippodrome, Stringfellows, and the Limelight. They were the clubs. Anyway, so about 3 years in to my tenure on at the club, one of my colleagues walks up, and he's got Hutchinson, your mate Hutch, walking, and I thought, bloody hell. So he introduced me. He said, "Kev, you like football, don't you?" "Well, here's Ian Hutchinson." I said, "Ah, wow, Hutch, I remember you playing for Chelsea, long throw and all that." And I just thought he was a punter coming in, you know. But he ended up working there. He ended up working in the Limelight as part of the security team. I mean, could he defend at Chelsea? You wouldn't want him making a tackle. You wouldn't want him making a tackle on the door either, I've got to tell you. But they put him up at it was in an old church, and they put Ian on what they called the VIP room. And all you had to do was just take a red rope off a little hook and let famous footballers in, you know. So people like you would have been coming in your day. In this day it was like Tony Adams and the Arsenal mob were coming in. Ray Parlour, they'd been there a lot. A lot of the tennis players from Wimbledon, you know, McEnroe was always in there. And Hutch was on the door, letting them in. And they had no idea that there was this great footballer, you know, was who he was. And, yeah, great bloke, great fella. Yeah. There you are. That's my Ian Hutchinson story. I should have got him to throw the ball across Shaftesbury Avenue, shouldn't I? See if he could have got it see if he could have dropped it on the on Stringfellows from there. Might have done it actually. Anyway, listen, boys, great to speak to you. Glad to have been able to contribute.
Wonderful. Lovely. Thanks for coming on, Kev. It's been great. And
my pleasure.
Let's hope Tommy Tuchel was listening to your suggestion about Phil Foden.
Yeah, he might take me as part of the management team. What do you think?
Well, there's enough coaches behind the scenes these days. I'm sure there's room for one more.
We can always do it again, Kev.
Yeah. Look forward to it.
You know, when big match.
When United win the league, we'll do that, shall we? When United win the league. See you in May.
All right, mate.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kev.
My pleasure. Take care.
Cheers now. Good.